In Ancient Moonlight, The Glimmerings of Luciftia, an Atlantean Brain by Blair MacKenzie Blake. Neath a pastel-streaked sky comes the tumble of unresting surf, charging at the glistening shore as a faint moon slips through the dulling clouds. Gathering sea-bleached shells am I as the spume hisses around my ankles, washing softly over the path of footprints on the tide-marked sand. Orange-tinged foam spatters as I dash across the purple mottlings of clumped weed, my child's fair form wet to the thighs as I slosh into the rack-beaching swells, wading deeper into an ocean of flame as a melodic call in the gathering dusk I hear. Mingled with the crying of gulls, this trill of haunting beauty I follow into over-carried spray as breakers engild the sparkling rocks, my answering smile tasting the wave crest's sharp and salty sting, till enveloped by billows aglimmer with rose-tinted fire. From the slippery outlying rocks, I scan the horizon's afterglow, bewitched by the creature's song wail, so dulcet and sweet the seraphic quaver, unlike the pips and squeaks of porpoises, this pleasant warble drifting nearer with each breath of the rushing surf. Filling my lungs with the pelt of spray, I dive into the moon's ensilvered flame, flickering with sequined gleams on tidal swells flecked with breaking foam. Under the churning surge, I swim in turbid lunar beams, hearing thrilling whispers more inside my head than with my ears, impelling me to glide with arms as wings into the eerie glimmer of the Fucoid-robed depths, reflecting the bright rising moon with its glittering mass of pasturing fish dappling the sea forest canopy. Moving through the entangling blades, I descend upon a jumble of stones, with fields of blooming algae sloping gently away into worlds muted and grayed. Feeling with cold, clutching hands, I move across spongy humps and bumps, passing spectral faces, watching from their burrows within, hiding from the moon's veiled glow, spilling through the hangings of weed, where silhouetted shapes circle, snapping at flashes of ghastly luster, skimming the seabed's lurid richness. I enter a salt-encrusted labyrinth of monstrously barnacled columns of stone, coated with a velvety blur of mosses. Slipping easily through this rocky chaos, I halt and hang with attentive ears, when suddenly the water is disturbed by the skittering of bleary fish, agitated by the pleasing drone, vibrating bones, chilled to the marrow. All at once, the featureless void becomes a harlequinade of color, as there appears through the maze of rockiness a luminous corridor of sorts, enringed with a glorious complexity of lights, fluctuating with pulsations, casting a spectrum of strange glares on the gardens of frosted coral there. Transfixed by this hypnotic lamping, there I float, serenity enwrapped, as the sand clouds settle to further reveal in the limpid depths a tunnel of firm, bright water framed by an enchanting riot of ocean flora, a tapestry of golden brown and olivine bedizened with sponge and gorgonia, with a rainbow of brittle stars, dotting a seabed varied with patches of anemones and pinnacles of stone festooned by sea tangle cast adrift, floating aimlessly over a wilderness ablaze with encrimsoned algae. With each flash of strange heat, my eyes could plainly see the kaleidoscopic flurry of fish hanging motionless in a train of still bubbles, their roving shadows appearing as dark patterns fixed on the gleaming gray mud, where statue-like, too, is the maddened scuttle of thorny sea spiders, stirring up plumes of living ooze from the mollusk-eaten floor. These clouds of milky iridescence, with their light frozen swirls and twirls, encircling a bronze whaler in whose flaring jaws its writhing prey pauses while exuding spurts of blood in a jetting dark haze of rich emerald green, each drop having come curiously to a glistening stop, while raining down upon the delicacy of sea lilies draped in sunless slime, every detail now startlingly clear while suspended in the spell. Pulled slowly through the water as if drawn by some mysterious force, I feel the sheen of the amphibious herds brushing slippery against my bare chest. My gaze entranced by the luxuriant portal with its curving translucent walls, inside which appears a holy man-fish, whose face is ensphered by a radiant gloriole, arrayed in myriad-tinted reflections. I behold the majesty of its gesture, this as the kingly irised hues of its oddly slanted eyes sing to me with upsweeps and pitch like the siren's jeweled tongue I earlier heard, beckoning me from the surging billows as a pale moon rode the twilight clouds. Now, as the ocean's variegated brilliance rushes vividly past my fluttering eyes, I pass beyond the shell-blurred gates, in whose timeless halls I glimpse wonders seen only in dreams behind a child's softly curtained lids. Warmed by feelings of beatitude am I, as I peer out with half-focused eyes at ribbons of sparkling dust among infinite nebulae billowing, startled now and then to see pulsating blobs flashing away like comets, for only then do I realize this vast gulf of space lays a great many fathoms below in a tortured landscape shrouded by phosphoric blooms of microbial flock, with brine-stained wonders cloaked with growths slithering in ophidian terrors, as nightmarish phantoms spring up out of the black oblivion, prowling husks feasting on the bursts of their quarry's cryptic glory, a garish circus of miniature dragons ablaze, and a vivid carousel of seahorses painting the turbulent darkness with acrobatic spirals of luminescent fire till flitting noiselessly away from dim glimmering monstrosities. As I shrink away from the abysmal horrors seen through the clear panes, the beasts of the deep start to fade, until those no longer a trace at all, but now only a smoothly polished, metallized surface where they once stirred. Still in a daze, I turn to find myself standing in an eerily quiet place, a scintillating white room, grotesquely sterile, with curiously rounded halls. Feeling dizzy by the lack of angles, I reach out to touch the pearly glistening as I walk through this dream, confused by unimaginable things such as the sheen of pedestal chairs that blend perfectly with the floor, and the smooth monotony of panels curving round the seat's contoured arms with the shifting mosaic of glows I bump, causing colorful icons to appear on maps of glittering infinitudes projected onto the darkening walls. Playing with the metallic fabric of a chair grown from the floor's luster, I turn towards an airy swish, catching a glimpse of several tall, slim forms approaching in a synchronized, lightning-fast ballet of silver. In the rustle of their shimmering flutter, I'm hustled down a glowing corridor into a smoothly domed room whose lattice walls radiate a misty white fluorescence. There, I'm laid on a padded table that molds around me in a wondrous way, my body soothed and tingling as I breathe the room's resplendent vapor, when soon I perceive in the hazy glow a masterwork of nature. Tall and thin glides this lord of dreams, with a face of calm, mysterious beauty, the shadow of its splendor flooding me as it bends over me in a ruffled collared robe, tranquilizing as a lullaby, with movings liquid and graceful. With the electrified poke of fingers moving rapidly over my prickling skin, I taste in my throat a sterilized flux as it palpates various anatomical sites till focusing its attention on the unmistakable flicker of fear in my eyes, calming me with an empathic gaze as I stare at the disturbing artistry of the face moving against a clinical radiance which makes me feel dirty and ashamed. The albinistic tones of its complexion, contrasted by its bright golden hazel eyes flecked with tints infinitely more beautiful than those of mortal birth, the deep, penetrating stare of which seems to pick up my very thoughts, for as I'm about to ask the robed figure's name in my little girl's voice, my head fills with a musical lilt the answer which I sought. Unable to stop gazing into its eyes, I try to fight their glaring pull as part of me floats above the table, with the other half still locked in a mental struggle while riveted to the glint of its pupil, a narrow slit in the iris's glistening fixity, dilating from a barely visible vertical crack to a widening circle of intense black. The speckled portal I pass right through as the theater's white borders melt away. Flexing my nostrils in the Stygian dark, I still inhale the sickly sweet fumes, but now also dank, acrid earthen smells, as two worlds become strangely intermixed. As indistinct shapes grow luminous, shadows dance on the jagged walls in this echoing stone passage, dimly lit by a trembling reddish-orange glow, whose source I move towards, feeling the grit of pebbles in my soles, pausing to pick bits of quartz from the ghost-like lavender of my feet. Passing under rough-hewn arches, I continue through the rock tunnel, straining to hear oddly muffled spell songs over the crackle of smoky torches, while creeping down lichened steps trickling with water, echoing hollowly, descending into the moistness of a circular grotto lit by the twinkle of numerous candles set in flame-lit niches all around the dripping limestone walls, adorned with the velvety patina of time, leaving patterns on sparkly veined rock. Through drifts of illuminated smoke, I discern robed and black-cowled forms, seated reverently around a great table, their faces reflecting monastic calm in the gleam of goblets and salvers. A vision too splendid to be entirely real, with the assemblage oblivious to my footfalls, or to the pale apparitional face observing this brilliant banquet as a disembodied spectator. In the fragrant drift of censers turned green with ornamental auras, I move towards the feast table, glimpsing the bloodless pallor of dark-hooded faces intoning the perfumed script from the holy scrolls of kindred rebels, while seated in carved and gilded chairs, cushioned with the patchwork of noble mold in the banqueting hall of this subterranean palace encrusted with mineral riches. Or perhaps a cave temple is this, filled with a galaxy of wax lights, blazing fiercely in my dazzled eyes, half entranced by the solemnity of the Mass, the spell broken at the concerted signal of a bell rung by a cloaked figure. Whereupon there enters the glimmering flow of a lady of startling beauty, clad in filmy sea-green draperies trailing behind her bare sandaled feet, a pageant unto herself with the train of lustrous silk drawn along. With this fluttering gown, clasped by brooches of nacreous shell, she glides like a mistress of tides in whose shimmering folds the billows comb, her smooth curves well defined beneath the diaphanous stuff, with braceleted arms gleaming like tarnished silver dapplings on moonstruck water, as do the splendid horns rising from the band settled upon her arched brows. But even with all her rich adornments, what most held my rapt attention was the austere splendor of that face peering from behind the dark gauze. Flawless as polished alabaster, the pale skin her veil partly shrouded, the fine lineaments a pallid mask bathed in a fountain of moonlight, with the bronze gold plates framing her cheeks, enhancing her petrifying charm, the strangely stiff profile, opaquely white in the tallow's radiance. As she gracefully crosses over to the celebrants of the sacred feast, slender figures flash begilt rings from the loose drapery of her winged sleeves. Yet, shaming these lovely trifles is the precious vessel held between her hands, its filigreed stance wrapped in tissue like a gathering of pearly cloudlets, in the midst of which it appears to float, before placed on a thin slab of jacinth, on shining white linen next to the luster of the other hidden hollows, beaming prisms in the marvelous effulgence of the service's countless tapers. Choking on swirls of burning balsam, I watch, completely absorbed by the sight of this exquisite chalice of shining white bronze banded in richly chased gold, on which flame patterns dance, directing my gaze to the inlaid ornation of the starry belt of the circling zodiac crowning its glancing rim. Leaning forward to better observe the cup's richly wrought surface, piercing sapphire eyes travel over orichalcum plaques engraved with stellar monsters, the visitations of the cloud-born ones insculpted in minute detail on inlaid sections with their fire ships seen descending from the lofty, starry regions. Beneath these blazing spectacles, fabulous beasts rise from the sunless sea, one Triton in marked relief, Lord Yah, enthroned in his court of muted elegance. Also depicted there is the account of the race of men his jewel-jetted scepter endowed, those molded from the clay of the earth, mixed with the blood of the cosmos. As I view this imagery of a paradisial idol, meteors of fire fall upon the delicate tooling, not shooting stars of celestial refulgence, but, as I quickly come to realize, the flying sparks of incense cast upon glowing, red-hot coals. While eternal salamanders bask in the inferno's quenchless flames, I lift my gaze to the company of men wreathed in the thuribal's azure coils. From the shadow of their cowls, fixed unwavering stares, watch in complete silence as this woman in her wraith-like drapery drew aside her gossamer veil, so that a rare scent wafted around her, not unlike a freshly opened rose. With her features now laid bare, I'm confused by a feeling of familiarity, like looking into a fantastic mirror is this, despite the allurement of her countenance. And then I know I'm not merely the twig of the same tree, but in fact, she is me, or how one day I shall be, when tall and superb as a mystical bride, full-breasted and gem-bedecked, in the glorious vestments' long loose folds, brilliant and horned, with glamour like a daughter of the night. Inspecting the brethren's faces, I notice one of the diners abstaining, one, unlike the others, stationed at the table that appears still in the bloom of youth, the violet fire of eyes under the cowl a sign denoting his high birth. Absent from the embroidery of his fine-spun napkin is the glint of eating utensils. There's no basket of perfumed fruit, or platter of peacock-rich victuals, no goblet of aromatic foaming wine, or bread kneaded from royal golden flour, with its highly prized gaze fixed on the priestess in her matchless sea-green gown. She lifts an amethyst-tinted bottle of rock crystal, like those for flower drops, and pours into the white bronze chalice a dark crimson fountain, staining the ornate cup with blood-red gold like that on her opaline nail lacquers, elixir of living flesh, ritually collected in the adjoining secret chamber. As the sacrament is made ready, to the blue bewilderment of my eyes, the saintly cauldron flashes with a blinding glare as if lit by a sunbeam of such penetrating brightness that it dimmed the candle's amber luminance. Striking the jewels bordering the chalice, the feasting hall is filled with wondrous hues, the gems of planetary rays playing on the faces of all those witnessing the holy drama. After the heavenly liquor is set alight, I watch, an initiatory rite revealed to few, as the royal wine is ladled out into a smaller vessel with a white silver dipper. This drinking cup the priestess offers to the youngest of the priestly order, which, when lifted, casts a jewel-radiant sigil on his robe's black draping. After quaffing to the dregs this extract of glowing lunar essence, scarlet dribbles from the lips of this prince of darkness, fed divine starfire. With hot flares dazzling my eyes, the ceremony phases in and out as all in the murmuring circle become still as statues in the pulsating silence. Watching this disturbing tableau, I feel a dizzying sensation of motion, the paralyzed pageant fading as I move through the dream's turning doors. Looking up at the vivid golden hazel irises directly over my face, I blink dazedly at the glorious robed being staring down with lidless, riveting eyes. Hearing the shuffling of feet, I glimpse others in the tingling haziness, the abstract purity of dolls in lustrous suits holding cold winking devices, the glinting sterility of which I taste in the intense white of the Spartan theater as the lance of diamond light moves over flesh glazed with sparkling jelly. Before even flinching, my fear is alleviated with a serenity rarely felt, calmed by the sublime texture of a hand placed over eyelids fast shut. While floating in the vivid luxuriance of a rippling, watery matrix, I'm suddenly thrust into the stinging brine of the ocean's delirium of colors, skimming a dense carpet of anemones teeming with a flitting and fluttering menagerie of fish, poking around the voluptuous bouquets and starbursts in time-frozen flashes, their steel-gray undulations fixed, till the spell is broken by a sudden rush of motion. With platinum bubbles clouding my vision, I swim across the algae-enveloped depths, over sponge-encrusted rocks astir with snouts of lantern-eyed death, and puffs of gelatinous stuff rising like opal umbrellas in falls of marine snow. In the murk of this bacterial flurry, I pass the blur of varicolored schools till bobbing in the gleaming slivers above this fish-dappled world, watching frenzied dolphins leap against the nimbus-ringed moonset. Salty sea air lashes my face as I walk along the wave-licked shore, my feet aureoled in foam as the tide falls slowly back into pale starlight. Towards the rock-beating surf, I discern a luminous mass near the ocean's surface, the white-crested billows trembling and roiling till tinged with a fantastic colored froth. With the waves curling over like tumbled jewels, I behold the sea god's titan towers rising from the turbulent, boiling waves, while ejecting a rainfall of glittering fish, its brilliance slowly diminishing in intensity until a beautiful, perfect sphere tints the undersides of clouds with lights flickering dizzily around its edge. As the oncoming tidal swell swirls around me with a greasy, iridescent tracery, I notice diffuse patches of a jellied film on the glistening tide line, the beach strong with the resplendent stench of its awful grandeur. As the rumbling, billowy mass ricochets with prolonged, livid flashes floating down from this hovering storm of unearthly hue, are metallic, shining strands, ribbons of ephemeral fluff which vanish at the touch of my numbed fingertips. With each flaring cloud above, I've haunting flashes of the last hours when the threatening conjunction of stars plunged Atlantis neath dust and wave. As fiery, grievous hail falls on vast pillar falls of polished marble and onyx, gilded cupolas are pelted with a shower of sand and stone, their palm-studded lanes turn to seas of blood, afloat with purple gore, as sun-bronzed bodies stain the turquoise water, shimmering, opalescent fleets burn, with crystal machines and flying horses entombed in a deluge of magma and falls of ash that shroud the gloomy specter of a dull copper moon. Startled by a shell's trumpet blast, I awaken, with my heart beating fast, the phantasms dreamt still vivid in my mind, as are the visions of ruin and death. Turning to behold gold pinnacles against the fading celestial palette, I knew the awful hour hadn't yet struck, when the magical empire crumbled and fell. The furious hissing of lava belched was only the swashing of pulsing tides. The palace I beheld fathoms below, the shelter of abalone and marble, and the columns of its elusive splendor, turrets of salt embedded with morbid shells. Yet, seeming so real, was the ensanguined talisman of the goddess enfleshed, with its stainless recipient kings, riding brazen chariots on constellations paven. As I picture those eyes of violet fire in the watery paradise of Ea, the vision is shattered by the blare of a conch signaling the kindled dawn.